Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Moody Gooders podcast. Hope you're well, and thanks for tuning in. We've lots to catch up on in today's episode. I want to talk to you about transfers, both incoming and outgoing. Going to go over some contracts that have been renewed. There's some rumors as well going around, and just to sort of pick up on where things are at the moment, because preseason has obviously started. So firstly, let's just dive straight into today's news. It's not the one that we were necessarily hoping for, but Jurrien Timber, the Dutch international defender, has now finally officially been unveiled as an Arsenal player. Though judging by the press release of Edu meeting him at the airport whilst the weather was nice and sunny, this transfer was completed last week. That's now done. He signed a 5-year deal. The fees are reported 34 million, rising to potentially 38.5. So quite a big sort of figure there for the kind of player he is. International player. Really sort of promising player. He becomes the latest in a surprisingly short list of Dutch players to have played for Arsenal. He's following in the footsteps of the great maestro himself, Dennis Bergkamp. You know, we've got some other players as well: Mark Overmars, RVP as well, Giovanni van Bronckhorst as well. Oh, and of course Glenn Helder as well. We all remember Glenn. There was another player as well to play a handful of games, but I will leave that as a bit of a quiz for you to come back to me on, maybe in some of the comments. So just going back to Timber, I must admit I've not watched much of the sort of Eredivisie action of late. I guess like a lot of Arsenal fans, I've watched a few YouTube reels. My opinion, I'm a little bit on the fence at the moment with this one. There's no doubting he's kind of an exciting young signing. It kind of fits the mold perfectly of the squad and what the squad has become. But I got a bit of a mixed feeling with him. I've seen some great stuff, but I've also seen some stuff that's got me a little bit concerned. I guess moving up from the Eredivisie and then moving into the Premier League. Let's see how he gets on. It'll be interested to see if he sort of walks into the starting lineup, or if he sort of has to sort of battle that out with Ben White on the right hand side. He can play in the middle as well, but I can't see him taking Saliba's place. Arteta likes that balance of having that left-sided centre back and a right-sided centre back. So it's going to be, for me, he's going to be battling it out with Ben White. So that'll be interesting to see how that develops. But either way, it adds great depth to the sort of overall defensive unit. Moving on, what else has gone on? So Kai Havertz, he was signed from Chelsea. That was a couple of weeks ago now. In my opinion, quite a big transfer fee. 65 million is what's been reported. And the other thing that's sort of come to light over the last couple of weeks is that he seems to be now the best paid player at the club, which is very surprising. The sort of rumors and the reports that are going around is that he's picking up something like 330 grand per week, which, I mean, that's enormous money to be given a player like Kai Havertz. So I'm really quite surprised by that. Obviously, take these things with a pinch of salt. They are rumors and things that are floating around, but it's that's a huge sort of substantial amount of money that Arsenal have put into him, and that's on a 5-year contract as well. Where he fits in the team, we'll have to sort of wait and see on this one. This is really a case of, personally, I'm really sort of, if you like, trusting the process in this one. There's no doubting the potential of the player, but he didn't exactly light it up at Chelsea. And as I say, the sort of figures that we're talking about, north of 300 per week and 65 million, it's a big investment. I'm also not too sure if he is the kind of player that's going to sort of run himself into the ground. If you think of someone like Martin Odegaard or Gabriel Martinelli, they leave everything on the pitch. They run themselves into the ground, and Arteta's sort of mantra, it seems, is that everybody works for everybody else. You know, there's this sort of real team sort of ethic that's there, and I'm not sure that he is that kind of player, but let's see. You know, Edu and Arteta have done wonderful things in the transfer market over the last couple of years, so let's see how this one, you know, pans out. I mean, I've watched him quite a bit. I've watched the clips, and I've watched a bit of the Bundesliga action from when he sort of was coming through at Leverkusen. And he was brilliant there. So I'm just hoping that that's the kind of player that we're signing, and that he can actually realize his true potential with us. I know I think the reports are that we had to sort of fight off Real Madrid and Bayern Munich as well to sort of get his signature. So, you know, the fact that we've got him in, you know, I'm fingers crossed that it sort of works out for us. You know, it could be very exciting. Where he's going to play in the team as well, I guess that's still up for debate. I know in sort of Mikel's statement when we signed him, you know, the word sort of midfield was mentioned and used. So logic would sort of say that he's going to sort of fit into that number 8 role that's now been vacated by Granit Xhaka. And if that's the case, that's very interesting, because they're not the same type of player. Obviously, Havertz is a more sort of forward-thinking player, plays on the front foot. He's, you know, at his time at Leverkusen, he sort of operated on that sort of right-hand side, drifting in. So it's going to be interesting to see where he, you know, what the setup is going to be like of the midfield, especially if he's going to play in that number 8 role, because obviously you've got another sort of similar player being Martin Odegaard, obviously a captain. So yeah, let's see how that plays out. You know, it's as I say, it's a lot of money, so I'm guessing he's going to be starting. But yeah, fingers crossed it works out. What else have we got to say about him? Oh yeah, the other thing, I really did quite like the sort of little video release they did of this one. So they had a little Arsenal box with his shirt in, and then they filmed the box traveling over to. It was quite funny because I think it was one of the Chelsea players, like Kepa. I can't even say this properly, but Kepa Arrizabalaga's wedding. And they sort of handed in the shirt at the wedding, which was quite funny to see that actually happening. And then what else is going on? So the big one, the big question, the elephant in the room, or not, as it actually is. Where is Declan Rice? This is the transfer that we're all sort of waiting for. It hasn't been announced. None of us, any of us, I think, have ever known a situation like this where a transfer has been agreed. Like, I think it's almost been like 10 days now or something that's gone on. And it's just been dragging on and on and on, and it's still not announced. And, you know, reports and rumors that the medical is done and the paperwork is all done. The holdup seems to be, you know, if we all sort of read the same sort of stuff, is that Arsenal are drawing up some paperwork with lawyers, and the wording needs to be right or something, which sounds crazy because this never sort of happens. And none of us have ever sort of heard this sort of stuff about a transfer before. Nevertheless, you know, the usual suspects are on social media: Ornstein, you know, Romano, you know, Plattenberg. They're all there saying that they've all come out and said it's done, the deal's done. Arsenal fans don't need to worry. Really, it's just a question of it being announced. There was hope that it would be announced today alongside Timber, but you know, I guess this is going to happen in then maybe in the next 24 hours or so, because I think from what I understand, the idea is that Declan goes on the US tour over the weekend. You know, I think the team are jetting out over the weekend because they've got a few games in the US, and they want him part of that sort of tour. So if not today, in the hours that remain of today, then I would imagine that tomorrow we'll get some more news on that one. And for me, this is the big one. This signing is the one that I'm really, really excited about. It's such a monumental signing. Getting someone like Declan Rice just transforms our midfield and gives us the platform we need for the next, I guess, 5 or 6 years. I mean, I cannot sort of highlight the significance of this signing. I think back to the sort of times when we signed like Sol Campbell, and when he came in and how that sort of sent shockwaves around the league when it happened. And really that's the sort of the mentality shift that I think the club are going through with this sort of signing. A player like Declan Rice, Man City were in for him, and I know they've got Rodri, but if you sign someone like Declan Rice, you find a place for him in your team, and there's no doubt that Declan Rice would have been playing for Man City and in their team and starting most games. If you think further away from Man City, take them out of the equation, Declan Rice walks into every other team in the Premier League, and so for us to be getting him, it's massive for us to be able to do this. I mean, I also think, if I think further afield from the Premier League, I think Declan Rice would probably get in to pretty much almost every other team, I think, in Europe. If you think of the big ones here, he'd probably have a good shout of starting for maybe Real Madrid alongside Jude Bellingham. I know they've got a plethora of quality at Real Madrid in sort of central midfield, but a couple of those players like Kroos and Modric and stuff, they're towards the end of their career. I think someone like Declan Rice would get into their team, and for us to be getting him, it's such a statement, and it sort of says, look, Arsenal are back. We are able to sort of attract and bring in someone like Declan Rice, and it's just huge for us to be able to sort of get this. So yeah, please Arsenal, just hurry up and announce this and put us out of our misery, because we really want this one to sort of come through. Moving on, what else have we got? We've got outgoings as well. So Granit Xhaka, he's finally left the club. Leverkusen paid a decent fee for him. I think it was about 21 million or so. Which was significantly more than what I think Roma were looking to pay us last summer. Obviously, Granit has had a great season with us, and it's very, I think personally, it's very fitting that he leaves in this way after having his best season with us. I think this is one of those transfers where it's so everybody's a winner, so it suits the player. Obviously he's had an up and down time with us. So for him to be sort of leaving in this way, with the support of the majority of the fans, I think it suits him. I think for us as a club and a team, obviously if we're going to bring someone in like Declan Rice and we've got Havertz coming in, then it's a way for us to sort of move forward and sort of improve our midfield. So Granit Xhaka, as well as he did last season, does have limitations. I think his mobility is probably not as great as somebody like a Declan Rice in midfield. And so I think it's the right thing. And obviously, Leverkusen are getting a good player that I think is probably more suited to like the Bundesliga in his style. So yeah, I mean, personally, I think we should all, as Arsenal fans, look to remember him from his standout performances of the season just gone. Obviously, we all know, the ups and downs that have happened in the past, but I think we should sort of just, remember him fondly for the season that we've just had. So what else is going on in the world of Arsenal? We've got some contracts. Yeah, we've got some nice contracts that have been tidied up recently. So Edo and his team, they've been very busy over the last 12 months, renewing a host of contracts for players. I think we had Ramsdale was renewed, Gabriel, and then Martinelli. We got Saka over the line recently. That was a big one for us. And now, in the last week or so, the big one for me, and I think for a lot of Arsenal fans, which was the one that we were all sort of fearing and unsure of, was William Saliba. And now he's now committed his future to us, and having someone like Saliba that's committed to us, we absolutely, this guy is just the cream of the crop for sort of cultured sort of centre backs that are able to play out from the back. I mean, we all saw what happened to our team when he got injured. That game against Sporting last season, even in that game we lost. I mean, obviously I know we went out on penalties, but when he got injured, everything about the way that we were able to play out from the back just completely changed, and the confidence dropped. So the importance of having someone like William Saliba in that sort of, in that heart of the defense, and he's able to sort of build on that partnership that he had with Gabriel from last season. It's of vital importance to us. It's that solid foundation for us to sort of build from. And, obviously now if we have Jurrien Timber coming in, who can operate as that sort of centre back or as that sort of right back, it just adds that depth and quality there. And so, as I say, going back to Saliba, getting him nailed down to that contract was so important. Obviously, given what's happened to him and the way that he was treated before, breaking into the starting 11 was a concern. But it's incredibly positive news that we've got him down. Reiss Nelson as well. He's also signed a new contract extension. I personally, I'm very happy with this one. I'm a big fan of Reiss Nelson. I think he's had a bit of a tough time of it, but we saw little glimpses last season of what he can produce, and we've shared some great times with that goal, obviously against, I think it was Bournemouth at the last kick of the game. I think Reiss Nelson's got a lot to offer us, and it can provide adequate cover, maybe not necessarily competition for Bukayo Saka, but I think that if you look at the sort of the nucleus of the squad that is there, I think there's enough cover now for us to sort of rotate a bit. We've got Emile Smith-Rowe coming back in. There's Trossard as well, Martinelli, Havertz as well. As I mentioned, Havertz played a bit on the right for Leverkusen. So I really do think that there's enough there so that we can sort of rotate a bit and give Saka a bit of a breather, because I think that's one of the things that we've got to be very careful of. I think he played almost every game last season for us. And obviously going into the Champions League now in the upcoming season, I think we have to use that squad better. And having someone like Reiss Nelson in the squad, I think really it ups our ability. So I'm very pleased with this one. I do think though that he needs to kick on a little bit in the season. I think that there's definitely more sort of to come from him. I just hope that Arteta does give him some opportunities, much in the same way that I hope that he gives Emile Smith-Rowe opportunities in the upcoming season. So yeah, that's fabulous. Moving on, Ethan Nwaneri, our young academy prospect. I think we all know who this is. Yeah, he made his debut in the game against Brentford last season, became the youngest player in Premier League history. He's signed on to stay with us, which is, very encouraging news. There were reports that, Chelsea and City were circling, their vultures circling above us, trying to poach him from us. And yeah, I mean, it's fabulous to see that the boy is committed to us. If we say Chelsea, we look at what's happened to Amari Hutchinson. Chelsea poached him, and where's he gone? He's had no opportunities whatsoever. So I really do think that him committing his future to Arsenal is testament to what we do as a club and how we sort of produce and nurture our young academy prospects, and we give them those opportunities. Whereas, if you look at somebody like, I'm not trying to, bash Chelsea here, but it's very difficult for an academy player to get through at Chelsea. You have to look at how many players they've had out on loan and how these academy players, just get shipped out, and it's very difficult for them to break through. And so, yeah, getting Ethan tied down, I think is fabulous, and it sort of sets us up for the future going forward. For me, the sort of next one, and I think this is a sort of general thing, tying down Ødegaard to a new contract would be the next sort of port of call. I'm pretty confident that will happen. There were rumors in the summer that Paris were looking to sort of, tap him up or, get involved. But I think those rumors were, all those, approaches were dismissed out of hand. I think Martin's very, very happy. He's the captain of the club. He's very young. We've given him his opportunity, his chance, because, at Real, he didn't really get that chance. So I think there is no worry there. And I think that's the next one on the list. And that's just a question of time, really. So, yeah, so some really encouraging stuff that Edu and his team have done with the contracts. Let's have a look at some of the rumors as well that we've got going around. So I think things just generally in the transfer market are going to go a bit quiet for us. Obviously, given the incomings that we've got with Rice and Timber and Havertz, that's a huge outlay of like 200 million plus. So for us to go spending big anytime soon, I think we're going to have to sort of rein it in a little bit. And I think a lot will now depend on outgoings, perhaps, before we then dip in to the transfer market again. Though saying that, there are reports of a bid for an exciting young Brazilian. He plays for Grêmio in the Brazilian Campeonato, which is Serie A. A guy called Bitello. So he's an attacking midfielder, not too dissimilar from what I'm reading in sort of playing style to Willian, the old Chelsea winger that we had the misfortune of taking on for a season or so, and it didn't really pan out. So let's hope if we get him, his Arsenal career is a bit more fruitful than Willian. So what we're hearing with the reports is that it's about 8.5 million. We've got representatives over there now at the moment who've watched the game between Grêmio and Bahia. And yeah, we're looking to get the deal sort of done. But I think this sort of deal, because it's sort of 8.5 million, it's a fairly sort of unknown sort of player. I think that one we might get over the line. And there's not going to be much of a big fanfare about it. But, still it's exciting that we're sort of using those Brazilian contacts that Edu has, obviously, from his time, being part of the sort of Brazilian national setup. So I think it's good. And I'm a huge fan of Brazilian football. So it's great if we can get these sort of young attacking talents from Brazil. We only have to look at what's happened to Gabriel Martinelli to sort of see how exciting they can be. So, I'm all for that. But I mean, other than that, there are a few rumors and whispers going around, maybe a potential bid for Aurelien Tchouameni from Real Madrid. This, in my opinion, is probably going to be later in the sort of summer transfer window deal, if it does happen. And I think really a lot of this depends on what happens with Thomas Partey's future, because obviously that's up in the air at the moment. Rumors are that there's maybe a bid from Saudi. I know Juventus are maybe looking into it as well. I think it all depends on what happens there with that situation. So obviously there is some background stuff with Thomas Partey that I think quite a few of us, know about. And I think the club maybe are thinking about that. From a performance level, Thomas Partey last season, I think for 2/3 of the season, maybe 3/4, he was brilliant and phenomenal. Obviously, he's not got the best track record when it comes to injuries. But, you know, at the end of last season, his performances, they just, I mean, in my opinion, they just fell off a cliff. And, you know, you think back to the West Ham game, I think he just, you know, he was just, I don't know what happened. He just seemed to lose confidence and he just wasn't that dependable. And, you know, eventually towards the end of the season, you know, Jorginho took his place and rightly staked the claim for that starting spot. So with this one, I think we're going to have to sort of keep an eye out with what happens. With regards to sort of us maybe going in for Tchouaméni or anybody else, I mean, if we are talking sort of Tchouaméni, I think this all depends on Real Madrid and what they do with the sort of Mbappe thing and that whole saga that is potentially going to happen this summer. You know, Real Madrid obviously shelled out quite a lot for Bellingham. I think the idea was that they were hoping to pick up Mbappe for free at the end of next season. And now PSG is saying, no, you either sign a contract or we sell you this summer. And if that's the case, that means Real have got to, you know, raise some funds. And they've shelled out quite a lot of money for Jude Bellingham. So they're going to need to, you know, sell what they've got at the moment. And they seem quite well stocked in the centre of the park. You know, I think they've got Valverde, they've got Tchouaméni, Camavinga as well. Don't forget, they got Kroos, Modric, Bellingham. So they've got a surplus of central midfielders. So maybe there is scope for us to maybe look to get Tchouaméni. And I mean, I'm all for that. You know, it'd be really exciting. I mean, Tchouaméni obviously, of course, played in the heart of the midfield for France during the World Cup. I know there were a couple of injuries, but maybe he got his chance there. A player with huge potential and quality. And again, I think he would fit the mold perfectly for what Mikel is building at Arsenal. You know, that sort of core group of young players that can flourish together and grow together throughout the seasons coming. I think it would be brilliant. But as I say, you know, I think a lot of this depends on what happens with Thomas Partey. So yeah, we'll see. There were also rumors earlier, you know, a couple of weeks ago, Romeo Lavia from Southampton. Though again, I think that's all dependent on what happens with Thomas Partey. And, you know, the rumours have gone a bit quiet for now. And I think that's obviously to do with, you know, us shelling out 200 million plus, you know, for players at the moment. I think we've got to focus on outgoings first of all. So we'll have to see what's going to happen there. So, I mean, when it comes to sort of outgoings, I think, you know, there are a few players on the list. You know, the rumours of Celtic maybe being back in for Kieran Tierney. I mean, personally, I hope he stays. I think it's great squad depth to have someone like Kieran Tierney there. I'd like to see him given maybe a little bit more of an opportunity, and maybe that happens in the new season, obviously with Champions League and the Cup games as well. I think there is scope there for that. But, you know, we'll have to wait and see how that unfolds. I guess the one player that's probably going to bag us a lot of cash would be Folarin Balogun. You know, rumors are that it's like 50 million or so, or 40 or 50 million, which is a huge sort of amount of money. And, you know, as a club, we've never been particularly great at selling. You know, I think back to maybe Oxlade-Chamberlain or Iwobi for like 35 million with a sort of big sales. So I think we've definitely got to be a lot better as a selling club to move talent on and sort of recoup so that we can sort of reinvest. So let's see what happens there. But yeah, so I think we'll have to sort of wait and see what happens with Balogun, Partey, and then maybe something happens later in the summer with another sort of income. What else is going on? So we've got pre-season under the way as well. There's been a couple of games already. We've had a behind sort of closed doors, if you like, friendly with Watford that sort of ended in a sort of uneventful 1-1. Not really much to report on that one. But last night, Arsenal kicked off this sort of, I guess, official pre-season with a game out in Germany against Nuremberg. Game ended 1-1. Little sort of tidbits, if you like, from that sort of game. Odegaard was initially sort of meant to be in the sort of starting 11, but then he pulled up with a knock, apparently. Nothing serious from that. William Saliba, as we spoke about earlier, he's actually returned now from his end of season injury from last season, which was great to see him back. And obviously Kai Havertz was named on the bench, our new signing, but he came on at half time. So the game itself, I mean, I've watched the highlights. I didn't watch the whole thing. Saka had a really nice finish within the first 5-6 minutes. Early goal, driven in, cutting in from the right-hand side. Reece Nelson looked really lively in that as well, which was really encouraging to see. I mean, as I say, I'm a big fan of his. And, you know, we just spoke about Balogun as a possible outgoing. Well, he did himself no favours yesterday. So he missed a complete open goal, and then he got through on another chance later in the game and went round the goalie, and he just fluffed his lines, basically. So I don't think he's done himself any favours there with that. So probably should have got more goals from that. And in all honesty, having looked at the highlights, we were probably lucky to get away with the draw, because Nuremberg actually hit the crossbar as well and had some chances themselves. So yeah, a bit shaky for the preseason, but I guess this is what preseason's all about. The goal that we actually conceded was a really sort of sloppy, poor own goal. Jorginho got pressured into sort of a 25-30 yard back pass, and he hit it quite hard and then straight in the goal. So yeah, not great, but yeah, there are some positives to take from the game. Obviously, Saka looked really good and sharp. Nelson looked good. I thought Ben White looked quite lively as well down the right as well, linking up well with Saka. So yeah, it was okay. It was good. Havertz came on, I think, at half time. He did all right, a bit quiet. But yeah, for me, the jury's out on that. You know, it's such a huge sort of signing. So I'm expecting big things, but you know, let's see what happens there with that one. Next up for Arsenal, in the preseason sort of tour, if you like, they're off to the US. They've got the MLS All-Stars lined up for a game, I think, next week. And then they've got a couple of games against United and Barcelona, which should be fun. And then they sort of bring it all back to the Emirates for the Emirates Cup then against Monaco, which will be good. I think myself and Paul are both going to be at that game watching that, so that will be good fun. Yeah, and I think really that's about it, guys. Just sort of wanted to give you an update on where things are at the moment. So yeah, thanks for watching. Get your comments in, hit the like button, subscribe. We're going to look to sort of ramp things up now a bit more now that sort of pre-season is kicked off. So keep an eye out for the next pod. Thanks very much, guys. Take care. Bye.